Money in your 20s. Hey, we're talking today about how to set up your financial life, and I reckon a lot of it is your life, because when we get out of our teens, we join the workforce or we go to university, and this is the start of a series that we are doing on money in your insert decade here. So today we're talking money in your 20s and late teens. If you do watch us on YouTube, there will be a playlist that we are building, and there'll be 20s, 30s, 40s, and then on the Retire Right podcast, which sits within our YouTube channel, there'll be 50s, 60s and 70s. So we're talking money in your 20s and late teens today. If you think this could be useful for someone, send it to them. And I added late teens because I reckon the sooner that we can learn these habits, behaviours, mindset things, the better our 20s will be. I will say you might be listening to this and you are in your 30s or 40s or 50s. There will be things that you can still apply because everyone's at a different situation. Everyone doesn't rock up perfect to their decade, and we'll go from there. But today I am joined by Rachelle Kroon and John Pidgeon from This Is Property podcast. Rachel, Sphere Home Loans, does support this podcast, so thank you for your support. I won't do a live read today, but you help a lot of our listeners with their mortgages. Your team of brokers help people all over Australia. So thanks for your support, Rachel.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any opening statements on this?
I was pretty ordinary in my 20s.
Really?
That's my opening statement, I think, around money, to be honest. A little bit like a dog off a chain. When you first start earning some money or start running, it can be pretty loose and wild, can't it? You've got plenty of energy and you can often look short-term on your finances, I suppose, and just enjoy that privilege of having money coming into the bank for the first time.
Yeah.
I might get you to bring that mic closer to your pie hole, Johnson. Rach, do you have any opening statements about money in your 20s for you?
Well, I was probably the opposite to John. I've always been a good saver, but I think so a common theme is when you do have good savings habits, a lot of the time it does start early. So I think it's great if you can start those great money habits as soon as you are starting to work.
Yeah, we've got listeners who are in their late 20s and have $150,000 saved just because as soon as they got a job at 16, they had those really good habits. But I will say the only counterfactual to that is sometimes you get that habit and you don't consider other things. Like you're allowed to have a life as well. And I think that's the dance, isn't it?
Yeah. You self-confessed pretty ordinary with your money. How were you in your 20s?
Horrendous. I mean, my biggest, if I could turn back time in my 20s, would be to get my mental health sorted and know that I actually had anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
I wish I actually knew that I had an avoidant attachment style in my life because it's just wrecked relationships.
But that affected your money habits, did it?
Well, I think it's just when you're a young adult, everything is everything. Because if your mental health is out to wazoo and rubbish, your money's not going to be great. Your relationships aren't going to be great. And I think today that's kind of a bit of a PSA if you are in your late teens or early 20s and you're listening to this and you might not be able to sleep or you feel anxious, like get help. But we'll talk about that a little bit into the podcast. But until then, we're just going to, chew the fat.
Yeah.
And Rach, you have a child who is knocking on this age
I do.
area.
That's giving me away of my age, but I am.
Young,
I do.
Rach. Started very young.
Just like money and investing,
Yes.
you've got to start your kids young.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. And, he's a good saver, but that's something that we talk a lot about. Yeah.
How old's he?
He's 23.
Yeah, okay.
Following mum's footsteps.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not that he's going to listen to mum's podcast today,
Definitely not.
but what would you say to him if you could give him some advice? Like if you had 3 bits of advice, money, life, career, anything, what would you tell someone like your son in their early 20s?
Yeah, I think obviously choose the career that makes you happy. I think that's the big one for me. I've always been a big believer in you've got to have a career that makes you happy. But relating it back to the money, it was always make sure you're putting money away from the time you earn it. So from the moment you earn money, and even when he was working part-time at Red Rooster, it was put 25 or 30% of that in a savings account. And I just bedded that into him about saving. And that was a big bit of advice. And the other thing is, and I know this probably is a little bit controversial, but yes, do the career that you want, but also choose something that's going to give you the lifestyle that you want. So, you know, a lot of people go into careers thinking, oh, I love that, but maybe it doesn't give them the financial freedom they want. So I think it's a double-edged sword. You need to pick the two.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Let's get into the podcast right now. You're listening to Money, 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 or as the regulars like to call us, M3. Everything discussed on the podcast is general advice only, which I'm licensed to give, and details can be found in the show notes. My name's Glen James, former financial advisor, now podcaster. I host this show and a show called Retire Right. I've also got a book called The Quick Start Guide to Investing, which you can check out wherever good books are sold, or there's a link in the show notes. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening today. Now on with the show. Okay, so I've got some, I just shared some points with you guys, and maybe I'll just kind of run through the foundations because I think it's maybe universally we can agree on these foundations, but at all costs to build your financial life and be most successful with your money, it is staying away from consumer debt.
100%.
And by consumer debt, we do mean credit cards. Buy now, pay later is consumer debt because you're receiving something before you're paying for it. And that, my friends, it's debt. Just recently, the laws have changed in Australia around buy now, pay later. They are more seen as a credit product, where before it wasn't. So personal loans, like if you need to go on holidays, don't get a personal loan to travel because you get home and the loan stays. And you'll probably, a lot of people will regret it because they're carrying around these payments for years. So, I'm big on no consumer debt.
Emotionally, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Like before we go on that holiday, getting the credit card's exciting because we know we can go and spend and enjoy the holiday. We get back and there's this burden of debt as well as the fact that I've finished my holiday. I'm like, oh, wow, this is pretty crap.
And if you are just starting in your late teens and early 20s and you got your first job, have a money management system. Don't have one bank account. Have an account that you might use for your pay to go into and your phone bill to come out of or your rent, and then have another account for your daily expenses and then maybe another account for savings. So that's really important. I met someone the other day, they were in their 40s and they still only had one bank account with everything in there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, they exist out there. So quarantine your money, it's okay.
It's interesting on that, if I can touch on this. Like my eldest, 15, working at a cafe, used to get cash each week, right? The good whole, cold, hard stuff. And I would take 80% of that. I think I've mentioned on the show before. That stopped about 6 months ago, where it now goes into his bank account. Guess what happened?
Got spent?
Gets spent.
Really?
And I can act like I can view that. I'm like, I'm not going to pull him up on this. We just find out the hard way. But the amazing difference, like you mentioned, you've got that one-stop shop there. You pay the consequence.
What else is in the foundations list, Rach?
The second is income insurance. So if you're working full-time, make sure you've got your income protected.
Yeah. And that's also another good habit. A lot of people don't realise that you can insure your income. If you had an accident, it was funny because at the time of this recording, I've just got back from Bali. On the way home from Bali, the amount of people that had crutches, moon boots, slings, so many people having accidents.
Scooters.
Well, one guy said he fell in a hole. So, it's just wild. Like, accidents happen.
Yeah.
So it's just if you can embed that cost of the income insurance once you're working full time into your budget, then it's just embedded. So if you ever can't work due to accident or illness, your income protection will come in. So
I think we feel indestructible at that age.
We
and
do.
Maybe reluctant to take it out somewhere.
And it's not something I had in my 20s.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Yes, it did.
But following on from that, John, you talk about it a lot with your clients. And again, these are just good habits to get into. And I will repeat, if you are in your 30s listening to this, you might not have income insurance. You might not have a spending plan with, being intentional with your budget. You might have consumer debt. We can all be encouraged by this.
Yeah.
But I just specifically this kind of decade and this episode, I am talking to those in their 20s.
Yeah.
Because I don't expect the people in their 20s to listen to the episode about the 50s or 60s.
Bit boring, isn't it?
So talk to us about the buffers and, I kind of call it an emergency fund. But yeah, how do you stand on factoring in that buffer if you're in your early 20s?
Yeah, I think if we had our time again, well, definitely me, we would put some money aside that says we don't touch it and it's there for emergencies that we didn't see coming, medical, car engine blows up, whatever it might be. And I think I'm a little bit lenient on how much that is, but we've got to work out how much it's costing us to exist each month and then put a figure that we're comfortable with. But then we don't touch it. That's the key, isn't it? That separate account that you mentioned. It's like, well, we don't touch that money and we only use it for those emergencies that we didn't forecast. And then we replenish that ASAP so it's back to where it was in the first place.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Like in my books and, all my teaching, I talk about 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, right? But if you're 21, you're at uni, you're doing part-time work, I'm just saying try, if possible, not to run your finances on the line and have some type of buffer. You might say, my goal is to get to $3,000, $5,000, whatever that is. Could be $2,000, could be $1,000. That's in a separate account as a buffer. And we don't touch that if insurance or rego is due. This is literally an emergency.
Yeah.
So I just think it's that habit of we're out of consumer debt. We're sticking away from consumer debt. If we don't have the money, the cash, quote unquote, we don't buy it and we don't run our finances on the line. And I can guarantee if you do it that way in your 20s, as your income grows, as your career grows, you'll be financially such a rock star.
And Rach, you would have had this from probably age 12, but like having that emergency buffer to the side is just a comfort factor, isn't it?
It is.
Sleep at night.
It is, and you just always need to have that. And that separate account for those things make it so much easier for people to get into good habits. And you meet so many people in their 30s who are maybe getting into the property market and they all have a horror story about their 20s of when they got into consumer debt and the great lessons they learnt from it. But I always think how great would it be if we could go back and put those lessons in before they ever got into it, into that trouble.
100%. John, you added a little point there on the fly.
I did do that.
That's
because
a bit sneaky.
Because it happened this morning, right? And
Right.
it's coincidental, right? But again, referring to kids, my two youngest have put their hand up and say, I want to earn some money now because they're seeing their big brother starting to earn some and obviously spend too much of it. But I think the concept of, like, we have a rule for him, 80% to us, 20% he can live, right? And we go and spend it and waste. No, we don't. We put it in bank accounts separate for future. So
Is it for him for the future?
correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So for most teenage boys, it's the first car they're talking about. But for them, straight away, they're talking about this morning because they're going for a job interview, right?
Right.
And again, they put their hand up. I didn't force them to get out and earn a living, but they're saying, righto, I have to give 80% to you guys because they've seen Max do the same.
God only asked for 10, John.
Yeah, but it just made me think when I was driving here today. I'm like, I just did not have the family around me to give me that sort of knowledge and guidance. And of course you've got to take that on board, but I think just having the right people around you who can guide you in that way, and I suppose being a leading example for them is a massive leg up, I reckon.
Yeah, 80% is steep.
Oh, it is steep, but he hasn't questioned it. Although now it's all coming into his account. It's all, most of it's going out now, but he'll come around. But I think, I was a bit flex on it, Rach. I could have gone to 70.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're a parent of teens, that's maybe something in the back of your mind as they first start to earn. If you're relatively financially okay, can you set a rule? And it can be a rule. It's like, hey, if you're living here and you're earning, when you get paid, 40, 50, 60, 70%, whatever it is going into another account. And we're using that to fund the house. We might give you some back later or whatever. You could tell them, we're just going to put this away. It's going to teach you to live well. But I think this is the drama, or not the drama, but in doing those things, can they still, like if you stop taking the 80%, would it grow legs? So how do you balance that, because you can, those convinced against the will are of the same opinion still type.
Yeah.
You can do something for someone unless they.
Yeah, they've got to own it eventually.
Yeah.
But I think two things that we talk about. One is the amount that we take will match. So that's a huge incentive for them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So that allows them to say, oh, hang on, I want 50% of it. Nah, but hang on, I'm losing 30% of it not being doubled. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it is, oh, but my friend gets to keep it all. Okay, but how much will he have when he goes to buy a car or she goes to buy a car? That's sort of the conversations. So they're not coming kicking and screaming. We're putting everything on the table saying, take it or leave it. It can be 80, it can be 50, it can be 30. But these are the reasons why.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's move away from, I guess, the teens and talking to parents there for a moment. And let's talk about those in their 20s who may have just finished uni, started uni or whatever, and I want to really talk about investing and building habits about, and I will take this probably a step further. Yes, we had that habit to get an emergency fund, which we don't invest, we just have in cash. But how do we now start to invest and build a habit to effectively grow wealth and have that mindset, whether it's saved by a property, whether it's investing in shares? How do we start to have those habits? Because that's more of a mindset thing, isn't it? And it's a financial literacy thing.
Yeah. Rach, you're probably more positioned than I am on this, but I think a lot depends on when they turn 18, are they going away to university?
Yeah.
Or have they got a job where they're trading time for money straight away and it's all income for them? Because, and we've spoken about it previous, like if we're going to uni, let's put a line in the sand for those 4 years or 5 years and say, well, the focus is not on saving money. The focus is on getting through our studies to then start to earn money.
That's a good point, because I've always said if you are at university in your early 20s, your reason for living financially is to get through uni and at the end have no debt other than the help debt. And if you graduate and you got $3 in your account but you've got no consumer debt,
tick.
How awesome is that?
Yeah. So when I was at university, I was paying rent and bills and all of those other things. If you're lucky enough to live at home while you're at university, I still think that's the time to form those great habits.
Yeah.
Because if you're living with your parents and you're still working, and a lot of the uni students work 24 hours plus a week, they really should be saving at that time and getting into those habits. If you're living at home, I would still try to put a good percentage away. I would say to be able to get that buffer and those savings plans in place.
Here's a thought, and this is kind of good just to kind of throw chatter out onto the table and, wipe it off the table or snort it up, if you will. But I honestly think it goes back to, so if I have that avatar, someone in their mid-20s, they might finish their apprenticeship or they've worked in the workforce for 5 years. So someone could be in PR. They started in a junior role. They did the comms degree. All right, but they're working at the PR agency and they're actually pretty experienced and really good at their job. So in mid-20s, okay, do we invest? Do we build habits? I think we need to actually, and this is the financial advisor coming out in me, what do you want your life to look like? What are your goals for your life? Now, you might not have any goals, and we can talk about that. What do I do when I don't have any goals? Or you could be like, sorry, I'm having an aneurysm. I want to travel to Europe and do a year abroad. Awesome. So good. That's a goal. I want to buy a house. Awesome. So good. That's a goal. I'm not sure. I think I like investing. I want to set up an investment account. Awesome. That's a goal. So I think it does, a lot of this is, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 25. There was this crisis. Oh my gosh, I'm not good at anything. I'm like wild, right? I had a mentor who encouraged me to start my own business and do all that. But honestly, it's got to be like, what is your reason for living financially? And we all need one of those reasons at any stage. And, you know, I'm knocking on 60's door basically at the moment. And just the other day I was driving along and I was like, I don't actually have any financial goals. Or maybe I do, but because, I don't know, like, and that's kind of what got me thinking just then. It's like, whatever your age, we always need something that we're aiming for. And if we're not, that's okay. Because if you've just achieved the biggest goal in the world, you've saved, you're 28, you got into your first home, breathe for a minute, go out, spend money, like live. So and maybe I have just come out of a goal season of building the studio, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, like, sometimes you've got to reinvent yourself, don't you? Because you've reached that, not the pinnacle, but in a running sense, you might have already done your 3 or 4 marathons and like, okay, what else is there now? Like, that I've reached that pinnacle. Can I get faster? Blah, blah, blah. So you've got to try and reinvent. And for you, like, financially comfortable, stable, not a worry in the world, like, you can get to that comfortable stage. But I like what you said at the start, Rach, about designing maybe your lifestyle requirements from an early age. And some people, probably us males, we don't maybe know too much about what we want or think about that. So, well, okay, if I want to have a house on the beach, or I want to be able to travel for 5 years, or I want to retire by the time I'm 40, I better get started. And what's that going to look like? Like, someone straight out of school and maybe goes and does electrical apprenticeship, they can start earning money straight away. They might have their first house by 23 or so. Whereas someone that's studying medicine gets out of university at about 80 and will be on the big dollars potentially later on. So they've got to be realistic in the sense that, okay, we're going to play catch-up, but we might not play catch-up till we're 55.
Yeah, the marathon analogy is very lost on me.
Sorry.
But if your goal is to travel, and that's great that you're saving for that, the habit's still there. So you're saving for that goal. You're going on that holiday. But they tend to be the people that come back, and when it's time to save for a house, they find that an easier thing to do because they've set that goal and they've already achieved something like that through those habits.
Yeah, and, you know, John talks about marathons, you know, because I'm basically a health influencer and fitness influencer.
Yeah.
It's like I'm building my muscles, right? Yeah, for a year I'm lifting bottles of water. I can lift something else that's just as heavy and it's easy because the muscle is there.
How are the pickleball championships going?
Pickleball's good. So I've recently started pickleball, and it was so funny. I was telling these guys a few weeks ago now, like, yeah, I'm playing pickleball now and doing all that. And they're like,
athlete.
Oh, do you go much? I'm like, oh, I've been once. But
it's a world craze.
Well, it really is. So I do go weekly. I'm going tomorrow night, thank you, and Saturday.
They would have missed you while you're in Bali.
Pretty much. But I don't know. I just think it's maybe the message I want to get out in this episode. Be active, be intentional with whatever you're doing in your 20s because you'll get the results.
Yep.
Don't be a passenger because guess what? No one's coming on your door. Hello? Oh, yeah, here is your dream job with your dream salary. Hello? Here is an international holiday. here's a first investment property. Here's your first home. That ain't happening. You got to get out there. You got to be active.
Was that you saying your table's heavy and hardwood?
My table is American oak.
Table.
Okay, so what would you say to someone that is listening in? Well, they probably wouldn't be listening in for what I'm about to say, but they're like, I'm not fussed about my 20s because I just want to go and have fun and live my life and have experiences, and I'm not too fussed about the whole getting my habits in order and creating a future for myself in 30, 40 years' time.
Well, I think you have to have the will. So I think there's no point in trying to shove this down somebody's throat that doesn't want to have good financial habits. But I think if you are listening to this podcast, you probably have an interest in it.
You've got a skew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or someone sent it to you.
Just humour me. Just like, okay, your brother or your mother sent you to this podcast and they're only listening in for the next 10 minutes and they're listening to this saying, this is me.
Well, I think habits are the most important thing. So, like, we talk about money habits and other habits. In my 20s, I wish somebody had taught me to go to the gym every day. I didn't know that at 20. Nobody taught me about fitness. I had to learn that myself earlier on. But if that was part of my early 20s, I would have had a lot easier time.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, I was lucky enough to have great money habits young, only because my parents taught me. But I would love to be able to say that if you have those habits in your 20s, whether it interests you or not, your whole life is going to be easier.
Yeah. I would say to John's question, if someone is listening, they've been sent this video by their mum or their brother or their sister, they never listen to a money podcast, they never watch money YouTube, they're out there partying, loving life, living week on week, and just like my 20s, I'm going to drink it, I'm going to smoke it, I'm going to blow it, I'm going to holiday it, I'm going to ride it, I'm going to whatever it to my 20s, I would say this to that person, awesome, go for it. However, you now know what we've talked about in the last half hour. You do have a responsibility, and the chickens always come home to roost. And when they come home to roost and you're 35 and you're 40 and you don't have a cent to your name because you live the party life and all that, you cannot whinge and be poor me. So go for it. Like, it's a free world. But don't turn around and say, oh, I got no money, I'm still renting. No, you consciously chose to live today, not for your future as well. And some low-hanging fruit, I always say on this podcast, one eye on today, one eye on the future.
Yep.
If in doubt, what I do, I've got a really simple financial plan in my life. I give some, I save some / invest, and I spend some. And I do it in that order. It doesn't have to be complex. To the partier, I would say, like the person that you just talked about, awesome, do that. But the challenge is, okay, can you salary sacrifice $150 a week to super and forget about it and get on with your life?
Yeah.
Can you set up an investment account or get into an investment property and just have that in the background? Similar to the reason where or why I have my investment property mortgages on principal and interest. It's lunacy. But if I don't, I'll spend the money.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got to, if you are willing to party and do the eat, pray, love and not worry about money, put some systems in place that are on autopilot in the background to take care of you.
Yeah. You've got to be listening too, don't you? Like you can be sitting in the room hearing it, but are you actually taking it in, going to take action? Because like you mentioned about your health and fitness, right, in your 20s. If someone had have told you, I'm sure you would have taken that on board and ran with it. If someone had have taught me in my early 20s about money, was I ready to listen? Not sure. I don't know. I'd love to know the answer to that. But I think it's, as you said, you don't want to come kicking and screaming to the party, but understand.
And the earlier it becomes part of your habit, whether it's going to the gym or getting your mental health in order or keeping your savings separate and making sure you save a percentage of what you earn, the earlier you do it in your life, the easier it's going to be because it becomes muscle memory, as you said.
So if, what's this, the gold pan or whatever, you're on the riverside on the tourist thing and you're panning for gold and you're doing a little shaky shake, we're kind of distilling here that in your 20s, we need you to be just borderline intentional about something.
Yeah.
Set some habits don't stress. You can still go to a friend of mine. She just finished a uni degree that she started in her mid-30s. She's now in her early 40s or whatever. And she's like, I'm so glad I did that because the time passed anyway. So we'll take a quick break. When we get back, we will continue this chat and, hang in there.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au. And they'll point you in the right direction.
Rightio. We are back and badder than ever. Just remember, if you want to join the Money, Money, Money Facebook group, when it says, where did you hear about the group, put, I heard the podcast episode 8, whatever the episode number is, because then we know you're not spam. Let's talk about career and university. So following on from a friend of mine who did the university later, I know a couple of people that did university later, I honestly think it's okay to leave school, go and work at JB Hi-Fi, get a full-time job, work, earn money for a while if you don't know what you want to do. Don't just leave school and go and do a token degree because it could be a waste of time and money. What are your thoughts on that?
Totally agree. I think I've gone full circle on the whole university thing. No regrets about going there personally, but I think we've spoken about this previously, when I was going through, university was like not a badge of honour, but it was almost like a given for people if you wanted to be successful. And that is the furthest thing from the truth now today, I think. So we're having conversations with our kids. I don't think any of them will go to uni, to be honest. But
pause. Straight out of school.
So straight out of school?
Yeah.
So it'll be job straight away.
Yeah, but when you said, I don't think any of our kids will go to uni, well, they might when they're in their 30s if they want.
Potentially, yeah. So straight out of school, yes, correct. Yeah, so I think we're in a very different world now, aren't we, where it's you've got to follow your passions and what you're interested in. It's really hard to know what you want to do when you're 18 or 19, isn't it?
Or even in your mid to late 20s.
That's right. And my youngest son, who's a teenager, wants to be an electrician, and he's told me that. He wants to leave school and become an electrician. I've said, it's fine if you want to be an electrician, but I want him to go to university. I want that for him. And the reason I want that for him is because we have our whole lives to work and earn money and get into that rhythm. If I can support him while he's at university, I want him to have that lifestyle. I want him to have that, to learn about himself too.
So that's, okay, so I'm sitting here on the boat and there's two different topics here or views. You are basically, there is an element potentially that you know your kids maybe more than they know themselves.
Yep.
So John really knows his kids, and with the discussions, he's like, yeah, they probably won't go to uni, went straight out of school. Your youngest, you obviously know him enough to go, yeah, I will support whatever you want to do, but at least if you go to university now, it'll be a lot easier to get that big rock done.
Yeah, and just have that time of life, that time where you can not be working full time. I just think that's it's a long slog of working full time. University should be a fun time.
So you're saying you'd be happy for your youngest son, to go to university for the experience, the social vibe. You may as well learn something. You'll support him.
Yep.
All good. If he finishes the degree and wants to go get an electrical apprenticeship, knock yourself out.
100%. And a lot of people, that's probably a controversial thing, because a lot of people think if they know they're not academic, they should go and do that trade. But I just want him to have that experience of life. And I think at university he might decide, oh, actually, just because I'm not great at school right now doesn't mean I have to go into trades. There's a lot of other things I could do. I just want him to have the full experience.
Can he get that experience without going to university?
I'm not sure if going and working full time is, at 16 and 17, I think it's such a huge responsibility for a young man.
Yeah, and that's the conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
So very young to be starting at 7 and finishing at 5 and having smoko and getting paid fixed hours.
I left school at 16 and went into a full-time apprenticeship.
What was that in?
Telecommunications.
Wow.
Because I was the youngest in my year. I should have been in the year below, but school just wasn't for me.
So is the university thing to live life and not be drained with the 9 to 5, because that's going to be the next 30 or 40 years?
Now, a lot of people are in different positions where they think, oh, I don't want to waste that time. I want to go and start my trade early so I can make money and buy a property in my 20s. But my preference for him doesn't mean he'll do it.
Okay, so if let's leave your preference for a minute. What if he went and travelled, did some part-time job, got life experience, wasn't locked down to a 9 to 5, but came home in 4 years and didn't have a university degree, a badge of honour that says, I'm graduated?
Maybe.
Because and I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just everyone's going to be different. And you went to university, and so did I, but we know our kids. But understanding that, I suppose I don't want my kids to go and do a university degree if it's just a token, because that's what we want our kids to do, to be university trained.
Yeah.
When in a lot of cases it might be a waste of money and time.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you reckon you're going to get what you want?
I'll absolutely not change my mind.
No, but anyway, we got to stay in the 20s because we're talking about people in their 20s. But all I'm saying is, as someone who's been through their 20s and the experience that I've had and talked to many people, if you don't feel like there's anything that you want to do straight out of school, please get a full-time job doing something that's fun at least.
Yeah.
And call it JB Hi-Fi, the Apple Store.
Yeah.
You might earn $80,000 a year working at the Apple Store or something with a bit of commission. Just get the habits in place and then just continue, sort your career out and make more money. It's a great book because we talk about understanding your values. So if you really value being a people person, you're probably not going to go and do actuarial studies, going out on a limb. So get to know who you are in your 20s.
Yeah.
You can, if you stay out of consumer debt, stay out of prison, you'll have a really good, stay off getting addicted to drugs, you'll have a really good shot. Yeah.
Great
you'll have
tip.
a good shot at being able to do whatever you kind of want. Because as we are living longer, I'm 40. I could go to uni tomorrow. We are living longer. People think I'm not 40, John. Someone thought I was 32 the other day at pickleball.
Really? Wow.
And I went, thank you.
Just probably the way you were moving across the pickleball court.
He doesn't move like someone in his 20s, but maybe the 40s. All right. So yeah, I really think the best investment that you can ever make is in your career. So it's going to be hard. And, Callum, friend of mine, he was in he was in the career book. He went to school, was smart. He went to grammar, actually. Got a scholarship, went to grammar. Smart equals go straight to uni, did physiotherapy, hated it. Absolutely hated it. Left physiotherapy after a few years of, helping Nana with her hip and doing all that stuff. He's just like, this is not for me. I hate it. Then he moved from physio. He got a job because he wanted to get into the corporate world as a claims assessor for income protection insurance at an insurance company. Because we could use physio experience with musculoskeletal, muscle, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Musculoskeletal issues. Did all that. Because he's got half a brain, he started going, that's inefficient, let's do it this way. He pretty much moved out of that unit into a change management unit in the company. Then now he's a business analyst for a bank.
Wow.
And
There you go.
so all that to say, he's got a really good income, really good flexibility, works from home, all that stuff. If you are doing something because your career is the best investment you'll ever make, you will 100% not meet your financial goals if you hate doing what you're doing of a day. Debate me on that. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I do speak to a number of people who have degrees and quite large help debts that also don't have an income large enough to do what they want to do in life. And I think that people still need to consider what their life goals are and if their income that they're spending all of this time and money training for is going to be able to support that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think there's a lot of people out there like that, isn't there? Where like I just need to earn more money, but I'm too far down the road in their own minds to say, well, go back again, because they might have kids already and they rely on that income, so they can't go back in.
Yeah, but it's not impossible. But if you are living on the edge financially, if you've got consumer debt, if you're living week on week, it's harder to get off that treadmill and retrain, even if you are 28 and out of home and renting, or if you're 35 with a family. So that's kind of my solicited advice, because I'll say it's solicited because you're still listening. Focus. Watch that monitor for the second time, John. Focus on your career. Get that nailed in your 20s.
Yeah.
Or at least have some type of direction.
And just having one eye on the next step. What is it next for me? If I'm in a role that I'm okay with, but I'm not over the moon about, what can I pivot to?
Yeah, and it's not too late to start studying again and do other things like that.
Totally. Because, I hated school, left school. No, I hate doing that. But because I was interested in finance and went and studied at a private college, financial advice, I was good at it. I loved it. I was engaged. It was awesome because it was an interest of mine.
Yeah.
Talk to us about relationships, Rach.
I don't know if I'm qualified.
Someone told me the other day, you need to stop saying on the podcast, you can't talk about relationships because like you're not married, because I say that.
Yeah.
But they're like, nope, everyone's got relationships, close friends, family.
Yeah. And John and I were talking about this before we jumped on, because I looked at this point about relationships.
Oh, I must have been making you coffee.
You were making it's actually delicious.
Very good coffee too.
But if I could go back and give 21-year-old Rachel some advice, I would say to be more careful of who you spend your time with, because I think sometimes we keep those friendships that are just because you've had them since school or you've had them since uni, and you're not actually thinking about the energy that person's giving you, but
taking from you.
Or taking from you. And now at this age, if that relationship's draining me and it's not giving something back and it's not a reciprocal relationship, I'm not interested in it. But I didn't know that in my 20s.
Yeah. Is it a confidence thing, or is it just a maturity thing?
See, the young people in my office at work in their 20s, they are much more aware of these things than I was at the same age. They are the language they use, these Gen Zs, are about, reciprocating relationships, energy,
Really?
the vibes. It's about, and I think they're becoming much more aware of those things at a younger age.
I like it.
I was talking to someone the other day on the phone about something. I'm not going to go into any detail, but halfway through the phone call, I'm like, this person actually isn't my friend. They're in the circle or whatever because I asked them something that was quite serious.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not for me. Like,
Yeah.
but if you learn that sooner, I think it's a boundary thing as well.
Yeah. And we become like the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who do you want to be spending that time with? If you're, the group of friends that I'm in now, they're constantly inspiring me to be better and do better. And I'm always reaching for different goals. You don't want to be the only person in that group pulling people
you don't
along.
want to be the leader.
No.
Yeah.
And I think it's about, there's friends and life-giving friends. Who gives you life? Like my friend Chriso the other day, he'll call me out of the blue. Hey, just checking in. What's happening? Like not calling because they need something.
No, yeah. And I think it's the energy and motivation you derive from each other. And it's like when you're down and out, having a bad day, who are you going to ring? And they're the ones that you probably hang your hat on. Aren't
Yeah.
they? It's like who are the ones that inspire you? But
In relation to romantic relationships, I'm probably saying to anyone, don't ignore red flags. They're a red flag for a reason. If you think it's a red flag, again, ask one of your close friends, trusted friends, who are gonna tell you hard truths, because that's what you want. No, I don't think that's good for you. No, that's straight up coercive control. No, that's straight up you're getting financially abused.
yeah.
I used to like to collect red flags like a sport.
Yeah.
You did.
You did. Yeah. Well,
Lol.
what was that sport called?
It was called collecting red flags.
Yeah.
The championships.
And conversely, don't give them advice without asking if you're allowed to give it, because that can end in tears as well, can't it? But yeah, you're right. It's the same thing. Like whether it's your friends or you're in a relationship with someone, affectionate relationship, the red flags are red flags wherever you look, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, and I think part of it is, well, growing up, we're taught to be nice to everyone, and so we don't flick a friend if we feel they're not going to be in our circle. Like, yeah. So there's probably part of that as well.
In finishing, if you need to step out, John, because John's got a hard 2:30 exit.
I do.
I just wanted to finish. We'll talk about that bold thing there that I've highlighted, guys. But I want to say, if you're in your 20s and you're still living at home, and maybe that you have finished uni, what's your move out of home plan? That's rent with a friend, rent an apartment by yourself, buy a property to live in. I think it's healthy. John will probably at me in a moment, but it is healthy to leave the nest for your own social well-being. Now, I get it. Sometimes I was talking to someone the other day, they've had to move back home for a few months or whatever. That's fine, but I just don't want you to wake up and you're 35 and you're still living at home with mummy and daddy.
Yeah.
Kyle moved out,
Oh, did he?
and it's broken me. But he was ready. He was only 23, but he was ready, and he
Yeah.
wanted to leave the nest.
Yeah.
For me, I don't understand why you'd pay rent when you have free accommodation, but he wanted
But
to
that's
have
the social thing that money can't buy and all that
It's
stuff.
that independence. He was
Yeah.
ready
Yeah.
for it, and you've got to let them have it.
Friends, yeah, whole range of reasons. So I see why someone would want to do it earlier, even though it doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I agree.
And that's what I mean. In my notes, I literally wrote, what is your move out of home plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the start when I was talking about we're living intentionally. Yep, I'm 24, just finished uni. My move out of home plan is, mum might be Rach, who's like, don't ever leave me. Mum, next 2 years, I'm going to live here. I'm going to save my ass off.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to move out. That's my move out of home plan.
Yeah. No, that's key. I like it.
In finishing, I wrote, and you guys can chuck anything else on the table, have fun, but pay for it in cash. Travel, go out, live it up, but don't fund your lifestyle with debt.
No brainer.
I would agree with that 150%.
And we haven't even talked about, do you buy the house or the investment property and travel? And some people are starting families in their 20s. We haven't even talked about that. Insert your thing in here, have a plan, put it in place, run some scenarios, maybe set up a Gantt chart of the next 3 to 5 years. Yep, we're newly married in our 20s. We can save X a month. Well, for the next 6 months, we're allocating that X a month to the holiday fund. When that's funded, we're then allocating the money to the house deposit, because when we do that, we come back. Yeah, Gantt chart it out. Have a plan, have purpose, live life on your own terms. And if someone tells you don't do that, tell them, and particularly your family, I'm not asking for your permission, I'm asking for your support. sure, if I was about to jump in front of a train, some feedback might be helpful. You know what I mean? Like,
avoid the red flags.
Avoid red flags, you know, and don't get advice from someone who's jealous, who's covetous. Is that the word? Don't get advice for your personal life from people who don't respect you, from people who want to rip you down, from the frenemies, get advice from people that are a little bit more successful than you, or who 100% are there in the trenches, who will support you and will champion you and will 100% have your back.
With no vested interest.
No vested interest.
Independent. Yeah.
And if you haven't already, start giving a little bit to a charity, or if you don't have any money, even give blood.
Yeah.
Give some, save some, spend some. Do it in that order. Bake that into your life. Well, our comments here are worth what you paid for it. Have some huge life goals and terrible relationships. Sort your mental health out if you are struggling. Have fun, but pay for it with cash. You don't have to go to uni till later if you don't want. Invest in your career in your 20s. You're compounding time, upskill, study, take opportunities, take risks, everyone. We haven't even talked about risks. Take a risk. Write down, worst thing that can happen. Oh, I've got to move back home. Take that risk, baby. Take risks. Big risks, because you've got more time to recover. We're not going to be saying that in the 70s episode.
No.
We're saying it here. Get your foundations intact. Consumer debt, income insurance. Give every dollar a name. Have a spending plan. Have an emergency buffer. Don't live on the line. If in doubt, send me an inbox on Instagram and I'll send you a voice message with my unsolicited advice to you. John Pidgeon from This Is Property. Rachelle Kroon from This Is Property. Thanks for joining us today. Next week, we're going to do Money in Your 30s. OMG. Please send this to a friend or family member who is in their 20s or late teens who needs or wants to hear this. And until next time, bye.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.